Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom's brand new October release is now available, and this is a fantastic release. It's all about fall. So let me show you some of the items I received. They do have other items as well, and I will have links provided in the description box if you want to go and check out everything. The first item is a stamp set called Pumpkin Picking. It has some great sentiments, and it also has the image with the pile of pumpkins, and it has the faces so you could turn those into jack-o'-lanterns. I think that would be really cute for a Halloween card. These sentiments are fantastic, perfect for fall. I love the Happy Harvest and Hello Fall. I can see using those quite a bit. The next item is another stamp set, and it also has the coordinating dies, and this is all sentiments. It's called Give Thanks. So we have Give Thanks, Happy Thanksgiving, Grateful, Thankful for You, Happy Fall, and Blessed. And I love that they have those coordinating dies so you can easily cut out your sentiment. The next item is another sentiment set. This time it's just the dies. So it has the word and also the outline, and this is the fall word dies. And this is great since it has the Thanksgiving, autumn, fall, and you could mix this up with their Happy Hello stamp set. And that's what I will be doing on one of my cards. And then the final item I received, this is my favorite, Fancy Leaves dies. So there's 4 different dies included. You have the outline and also the solid leaf. The solid leaves have this beautiful stitch detail, and then the outline fits on top of that solid. So you have this oak leaf and also the maple leaf. I love the size of these dies. They're really large, but they're not too big that you couldn't combine a few different leaves on an A2 size card. There are some other sets that I didn't receive, and if you want to go and check those out, I will have a link provided in the description box for the full October release. So let's go ahead and get started with my first card. I'll be using a card sketch from the Paper Players. This is number 259. All of the pattern paper I'm using in this video is by Prima. It's their brand new Hello Pink Autumn collection. And what a perfect name. It has the word pink in it. I'm using some pattern paper that has a linen texture look to it, although it's very smooth. Adding a couple of Love from Lizzie peel-offs to the very top of the card. This is the rose gold color in the pinstripe style. Just wrap those ends around the back. Put some ATG tape on the back of this panel, layer it on some soft pink cardstock, and then again on some black cardstock. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. I'll put my card front onto a card base, and I have several other pieces already cut out from the pattern paper. I'll adhere the black pattern paper banner on the left-hand side using some liquid adhesive. I cut out both of the circles using a stitch circle die set, and they will go off of the edge on the right side of the card. So I've already trimmed the larger circle. For the smaller circle, I'm just holding it up to the card, flipping it over, and then trimming off that side. And I decided I would pop up this smaller image with the cute little pink pumpkin. I remove my release paper and adhere it to the card. And I am following this sketch fairly closely. For the sentiment, I've already stamped out Hello Fall. I love the font on the sentiment. I'll just trim a fishtail on the right side and layer it on this pink, kind of a blush colored pink cardstock. And I'm adding about 1/8 of an inch matted layer for that sentiment. I'll adhere it to the lower left-hand corner using some liquid adhesive. Then to finish up the card, I'll bring in some older glittery enamel dots, and this was from a previous Love from Lizzie monthly kit. Putting 2 of them in the upper left-hand corner and 1 underneath the 2 circle images. So there's my finished card, and I did make 2 using this sketch. I love the soft colors in this paper collection. It has a very unique color palette for autumn cards. Now moving on to card design number 2, and this is one of my favorite cards. I love this pattern paper with that soft pink background and scattered leaves all over it. Added a strip of this pink grid pattern paper. I'll line that paper using some clear gold mirror peel-offs. Just putting one along the very edge of that grid pattern paper. It'll add some pretty shine. For that top piece, I don't need to have a peel off going all the way across the top since I will have an image covering up that little gap. Put some ATG tape on the back and layer this piece on some cardstock. For most of my cardstock layers, I add an additional 1/8 of an inch. So that leaf pattern paper is 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches, and the cardstock layer is 5 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 of an inch. For the image on my card, I'll be using the pile of pumpkins. I stamped it on some soft pink cardstock using the Merlot color by Catherine Pooler. Now, since I don't do coloring very often, I still wanted to add a little bit of color to the pumpkins. So using that same Merlot color and a blender brush, I'm adding a very light coating of the ink on the pumpkins, and a little bit of the ink will go outside the lines. I think that additional ink really makes those pumpkins stand out. Next, I'll be using some gold watercolor paint, and this is by Finetec. Not sure if this is available any longer, but if I can find something similar, I will add a link in the description box below. I selected one of the gold colors, put some water in there, just rolling my paintbrush in and then tapping it over my image to give it this pretty gold splatter of paint. Hard to see on the video, but it has this beautiful color. So there you can see the light picking up on that splatter. Before adhering the oval die cut to my card, I'm adding a scrap piece of cardstock just on the upper portion. It's going to go over that pattern paper strip. I want to keep everything nice and level. I'll also pop it up using some thin foam squares. And my package was almost out, so I'm down to just my small little squares. Once I remove all the release paper, I'll adhere it to my card on the left-hand side. And this is where it'll cover up that gap where I didn't put the peel-off strip all the way across the card. For the sentiment, I've already stamped this out. This is Happy Harvest, and I stamped it on the same pink grid pattern paper. I'll cut a fishtail on the right side. Also pop this up using some thin foam squares, and when I adhere to the card, I'm trying to line it up with the grid lines that are already on that strip. Using Jaded Blossom's banner die set, I cut out 2 small banner die cuts. Use the same cardstock as the background layer. I have one larger and one smaller, and I'll just overlap them slightly. I did add a small scrap piece of cardstock on the right side of the larger banner before adhering the smaller one on top, and that'll just keep those pieces nice and level. I'll also add a few gold gem stickers, and these are from Spellbinders. They're super sparkly and it matches nicely with all the gold on the card. So there's my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. The pattern paper has the look of a gold splatter in the background, so I think adding that gold splatter on the image really tied it all together. Now moving on to card design number 3. The card sketch is from Sugar Sketch. This is number 14. I have some beautiful pattern paper for the background that has flowers and pumpkins. Layered it on some purple cardstock and then again on some black cardstock. I'll put my card front onto a card base. On the card sketch, there's 2 banners on the left-hand side. I decided to use solid cardstock for those. So I have that same purple cardstock that I use for the background layer, and also a softer lilac color. Just cutting a fishtail on the bottom of both of those pieces. For that circle that's indicated on this sketch, I used some of the scrap pattern paper, this black design with a tone-on-tone floral pattern. I don't need a full circle since most of it will be covered up. I'll adhere that purple banner first, the darker purple banner, and then add this light purple. And you won't see that top portion. It's all going to be covered up by the sentiment, which is a good thing since I dropped some of those pieces and got some extra glue on the top of that purple banner. I've already stamped out the sentiment, Happy Thanksgiving, and I stamped it on some white shimmer cardstock. I used a corner rounder to round the top 2 corners on that sentiment piece. Decided to add a couple of peel-offs underneath the sentiment. I believe this is the mauve mirror color in the pinstripe style. I'm using the widest width and the medium width, just putting them underneath the sentiment. And I do have the ends going off the edge, and I'll just wrap those around the back, just to make sure it won't fall off later, although I've never had a peel off fall off of a card before. I'll layer this piece on some black cardstock. Before I adhere it to the card, there's all of those other layers underneath the sentiment, and I don't want the edge of those cardstock pieces to show through on that sentiment. So I'm adding some scrap cardstock pieces on the back side. I put a larger piece on the right side of the sentiment and also a thin piece on the very top portion, and that'll keep everything nice and level. Instead of the heart that's indicated on the card sketch, I'm adding a couple of small leaves using some iridescent cardstock from Tonic Studios. And the leaves are from the Fall Banner die set by Jaded Blossom. To finish off the card, I'll add a couple of black gem stickers, 2 in the upper right-hand corner and 1 underneath the 2 leaves. So there's my finished card, and I did make 2 using this sketch. For card design number 4, the card sketch is by Paper Play. It's number 50. Now this sketch is designed as a vertical card, but I'm turning it and making it horizontal. I have some fun plaid paper for the background and some beautiful pumpkin and butterfly pattern paper for that smaller rectangle. Layer everything on some black cardstock. I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For my sentiment box, I'm using some more white shimmer cardstock. Has that beautiful shimmer. I love this cardstock. Before adhering it to my card, I will add those scrap cardstock pieces on the very outside edge where it goes off of that pattern paper in the center. I'll adhere it to the card using some liquid adhesive. And unfortunately, I do cover up quite a few of the images on that pattern paper, but you'll still see some of the pumpkins. I'll be adding the word Thanksgiving. I cut it out from some burgundy cardstock, and for the outline, I cut that out from some vellum. It's going to be a very subtle outline piece. I'll adhere the 2 pieces together. I'll put more liquid adhesive on the back, trying to stay just where the word is, so you're not going to see the adhesive through the vellum. Then I'll adhere this sentiment onto that large sentiment box. I've stamped out the sentiment Happy using Jaded Blossom's Happy Hello stamp set. So I used some black ink, just stamped it on some white cardstock, and I'll adhere it right above the word Thanksgiving. The Happy Hello stamp set is one of my favorites from Jaded Blossom. I use it all the time. I'll add a couple of banners in the upper right-hand corner, cut out one from the burgundy cardstock and the smaller banner from some black cardstock. I'll just glue them down using some liquid adhesive. Jaded Blossom's banner die set has so many fun dies. The ones I use the most are these 2 small banners. I love that stitch detail, and they add just a lovely finishing touch to your card. Also add a few black enamel dots in the lower left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and again, I did make 2 using this design. I'm so glad I have a couple of my Thanksgiving cards made, and it's only October. Card design number 5 is my favorite card, but do let me know which card is your favorite. I have this dark brown, almost black pattern paper with this tone-on-tone little floral leaf design on it. And I cut this out using a stitched rectangle die by Jaded Blossom. The very bottom of the card, I'll be adding one of the banner die cuts. So I don't just use those small little stitch banners. I do use some of the full-size banner pieces. I'm just trimming off the extra where it goes off of the end of the paper. Then I'll layer this panel onto some dark brown cardstock. I use some ATG tape, and I'm also adding a thin layer of liquid adhesive along that outside edge because that piece does have the stitch detail. Sometimes it doesn't always lay flat on the card unless I add liquid adhesive. I'll add this panel onto a card front. Now to add a pop of pretty pink color. I cut out 2 leaves using the new fall leaf dies. I used some pretty pink cardstock for the solid leaf die cut. Then I used the opposite side of that cardstock. It has a pearlescent finish, and I cut out the outline die cut. I'm adding a little extra detail with some Merlot colored ink, just putting it along the outside edge of both of those leaves. This will give the leaves more of a dimensional look. So once I have both of those covered, I can attach them to my card, just adding a little more ink in the center of that solid leaf. I love how bright the leaves look against that dark brown pattern paper. For this solid leaf, I'm adding some thin foam dimension to the back side, but just on the upper half of the leaf. Remove the release paper and adhere it to the left side of the card. Then for the outline leaf die cut, I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the right side of the card. I wanted to cut some teeny tiny little pieces of foam dimension. I could put it underneath some of the areas, but I decided just to glue it down flat. Now I'll set that aside and start working on the sentiment. I have some darker pink cardstock. The sentiment is Give Thanks, and I'm inking this up using the Icing on the Cake color by Catherine Pooler. Now I have some Glossy Clear embossing powder, just adding that on top of the sentiment since it's still nice and wet. Then I'll heat set this with my heat gun. That'll give this sentiment a really pretty embossed look. I also don't have to worry about that ink smearing. Then I'll use the coordinating die to cut out this sentiment. I think the die cuts out the perfect size border around the sentiment. I put some thin foam squares on the back side of the sentiment, and I'll just adhere it on top of the leaves. Finish off the card, I'll add a few pieces of bling. This is a set from Pink and Maine. It has this beautiful pinkish purple color when the light hits it. I'll just glue those in place using some liquid adhesive. So there's my finished card. I love how this one turned out, and again, I did make 2 using this design. The pink and brown together are so pretty, and I love using non-traditional fall colors. I love the leaf die, so I wanted to make a card using the maple leaves as well. So I cut out this solid leaf using some burgundy cardstock, and I'm just adding that gold splatter of the paint all over the background. Let that dry for a moment. Using my favorite pattern paper, used it on a previous card. What's fun about this sheet, it has the sentiment Grateful Hearts on it. On the previous card, I cut off that portion, but I decided I would use that sentiment on this card. I used some gold mirror cardstock for the outline maple leaf die cut, and I'll glue that one down first using some liquid adhesive. This is a very simple card. Then for the solid maple leaf, I'll put some of the foam squares on the upper portion, and then the lower portion of the leaf, I'll put some liquid adhesive. I'll rotate it just slightly before adhering it on top of that gold leaf. That way you can still see all that beautiful detail. Next, I'll add a small bow using some twine. It's an off-white color, and it also has some gold threads mixed in. So just tying a very small bow, and I'll trim off the tails, adhere it to the card using a small glue dot, and I'm just putting it onto the stem of that burgundy leaf. Trying to get it straight and get both of those tails facing the correct direction. Then to finish off the card, I'll add a few gold foil pearls. These are by Studio Katia. putting 2 of them in the upper right-hand corner and 1 in the lower left-hand corner. And that gold matches beautifully with the gold leaf. So there's my finished card, and again, I did make 2 using this design. A super simple card design to really feature those beautiful maple leaf dies. Now here's another look at the 12 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's October 2021 release. Lots of amazing autumn theme products. I will have links provided in the description box if you are interested in any of the products I used in this video. I'll also have a link to the full release since there's several other stamp and die sets that I didn't pick up. For more inspiration using this new release, head over to Jaded Blossom's blog. They have an incredible design team. I love all the different cards and projects that they've created. Jaded Blossom sells a huge variety of stamps and dies. I love their products, they're excellent quality, and I really love being able to support a small local business. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.